Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Steel Target Paint Podcast. You know, when we were getting ready to do this episode, I thought I was going to have to do it alone because my co-host Steve Foster was lounging last week, you know, just taking it easy on his back. Of course, he was in the hospital. Steve, how you doing?
Jeff, I'm doing a lot better now than I was 7 days ago. I can tell you that.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. What? How's your prognosis for recovery? When are you going to be back on the range?
I spent 5 whole days in the hospital, and I don't mind sharing this with you. I had E. coli, which is like crazy. And people get it, and sometimes people don't know that they have it because it's like a bad tummy ache, and people think they got food poisoning for a couple days. But I was one of the few proud people that it turned into sepsis, which is a blood infection, and it was I had a full-blown situation going on there, Jeff. It was crazy.
Well, you know, Steve, I've known you for a couple of years now, and the one thing I can say is that you don't do anything halfway. It's all or nothing. So, I mean, if you're going to get sick, you're going to get sick. I mean, that's just the way it is.
And, well, you know, and I do appreciate, Jeff, that you know, because I've got a lot of friends from my friends and family, immediate friends and family, as well as through work, and certainly a lot of my friends come through the through the shooting community, and really appreciate the love and support from that group, because man, it was kind of rocky there a couple times, and I had offers from more than one person to come with some ski masks to break me out of the hospital. And Jeff, I do think they were serious, so I appreciate the love and support. It really meant a lot, and appreciate those. And I won't go through everybody, but there's some folks that helped us out locally with our kids, so my parents could, or my wife and I could spend some time together in the hospital. So, no, I appreciate everybody that helped out. It means a ton to me. So, thank you.
Excellent. Well, you know, we've talked with Mike Fuller, we've talked with Zach Jones, but, you know, this is another good episode where I want to get into some of the meat of what actually happened with regards to shooting at the match. How's that sound?
Oh, I'm digging it. Let's talk about it when you put a pin in this one.
All right. So I'm looking at the world record, division world records. And there were 6 division world records set.
Out of 13, right?
Out of 13.
That's crazy.
And in fact, it's probably where everybody would expect them. It's in the rifles and in the rimfire.
Right.
There were no new records set in the centerfire pistols. So I'm looking here at the numbers, and just quickly, since I got them in front of me, Chris Barrett set one in PCCI, another one in PCCO, and another one in RFRO. Neil Norman set one in RFPI, KCU CBO in RFPO, and Cole Bush in RFRI. Now you say to yourself, okay, great, lots of world records going down. But then I compared them to the previous world records, which, quite frankly, most of them were set last year.
Right.
Okay? So let's just take rimfire rifle open. Last year, Mackenzie Bragg set the record at 64.45 for rimfire rifle open. Chris shot a 56.57, breaking that by 7.88 seconds.
It's crazy. Almost 8 full seconds. That's crazy.
Now, people, put that in perspective. That's, on average, a quarter of a second a string on every stage score he took in, or every string he took into score.
That's a second a stage. It's crazy.
It's crazy. Now, you want to be even more flabbergasted?
I know where you're going next. Let's go there.
PCCI, Cole Bush in 2019 set the world record at 69.56. Chris Barrett set it this year at 59:48 for 10.08 seconds faster.
It's crazy. That's crazy.
It is unbelievable. You know, and there are still some other ones. I mean, quickly, PCCO, Ethan last year, 65:46. This year, Chris, 60:33 for 5.13 seconds. And finally, what I consider to be a quite impressive feat as well, and this record has been held, well, actually, there's two records that have been held since 2015 that were broken. Okay? In 2015, Max Michel shot RFPO at a 60.75. And this year, KC shot it at a 58.43 for 2.32 seconds.
That's smoking.
And then the only one that ends up being, you know, like kind of how world records should be broken, you know, over the course of 8 stages, this world record was broken by 0.73 seconds. And in 2015, Colby Pavlock set rimfire pistol iron at a 72.59, and Neil Norman shot a 71.86.
I love it.
That guy shoots his rimfire pistol iron faster than I shoot my rimfire pistol open.
Don't feel bad. He's doing that with a lot of us.
You know, so it was pretty amazing. You know, when you start digging down here, and you say to yourself, well, how does this happen? What is it that does this? And so I started looking at the individual stage records. And I think you know the number. You know how many different stage world records were set this year?
Oh, wow.
Do you remember the number?
44?
Close. 38.
That was close.
Yep.
That was close. That's crazy.
Some of them were, you know, in that, in fact, let me just do the quick number here. 32 of them were broken by less than a second, which is still an impressive feat. Remember, now we're talking about stages, so you're only talking about 4 strings. So that's
what's the percentage of that? How many stage times? It was 38 out of 142 or something?
104.
144.
So
104.
if we do 38 divided by 104, it's 30. It's over 1/3.
Yeah.
Over 1/3.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Because again, we're talking about some of the, you know, we're talking about stage records. So there was a couple. There was an iron sight revolver. A couple of those were broken. Okay. Reset by the the past world champion, and he just bettered his own score. Let's put it that way, and that goes to Michael Pogge. You know, he is the predominant iron sight revolver shooter at the upper levels when it comes to Steel Challenge. But you know, there was a good example in Open, okay, on Pendulum. Casey Eusebio took that world record from a 956 that stood since 2016 by B.J. Norris down to a 924. Now that's an Open. That's pretty, you know, 924. You know, you talk 924s in the rimfire game, and it doesn't hold up. But you're talking about a centerfire pistol here from a draw in Open. That's 924 is just smoking.
Yeah, that is smoking.
But here's a couple of the ones that really start to talk about how world records are set. When you talk about, here's a good example. Last year, Cole Busch set the speed option record in PCCI at a 901. And in the past, we'd go, yeah, that's cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris Barrett did a 715 this year.
Woo, son, that's cooking.
186. And this is where this is what you start doing, and you start seeing is that, you know, you've got to shoot all the stages incredibly fast. And hey, I'm not taking anything away from all those top guys, but you've also got to have all the stars line up, because we've all had the occasional failure to fire, failure to feed.
Sure.
In my case, failure to reload.
That never happened to me.
Luckily, I never did it at the Worlds, but I have done it in other matches. Or gun breaks, firing pins break. And you've got to have the stars line up. And I think the reliability of a lot of these guns is also a big part as to why these world records are able to be set, because they are running for the whole match without a problem.
Right. 100% agree.
So I really wish we were doing a video of this, because it would really talk to what I've been preaching. And, I'll say it again, you want to go fast. It's grip the gun and go 1 for 1.
Right.
And you're going to put down your fastest times, because I highly doubt that, yourself, Grant, Cole, Chris, any other top dogs that are in this game, for whatever gun they're shooting, are up there with a weak grip, even with the rifles.
Right.
It's snug.
Right.
It's snug in there.
Oh, yeah, it's firm.
But I really wanted to impress on people what the difference is in these top shooters compared to, we're just going to say, a solid GM score.
Right.
Because I think that's fair. You sit there and you go, how does this person, I took Roundabout. Okay. Roundabout's peak time in PCCO, if I'm not mistaken, is 7.5 seconds. And I'm just checking that to make sure.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
So we go down here, Roundabout, PCCO, Roundabout is 108. Yep, it's 7.5 seconds.
Right.
So I took this year's current world record setting time. Little shout out to Emily Cunningham, because she's the one who said it. Emily shot a 6:09 on a stage with a peak time of 7.5.
Right.
So yeah, you're looking at just over 1.5 seconds a string.
Right.
And then I took the person in the match who shot closest to the peak time.
So somebody that shot close to that 7.5, right?
Right. And I found somebody, there was somebody in the match, they shot a 7:49. Okay?
That's pretty darn close.
Absolutely. So here's some of the interesting things, and you're probably going to go, well, I'll wait and let's see what you say, okay? But let's look at Emily's strings here. First of all, Emily had 5 strings of 1 for 1.
Imagine that.
Now remember, she shot a 6:09, average of 1.52. Okay?
So what was her first string?
First string, 176.
Perfect. Yep.
Next string, 160.
Yep.
Next string, 155.
Yep.
Next string, 151.
Yep.
Final string, 143.
Perfect.
Now, I know what I'd say about this, but I'm going to let you say it.
Well, there's a couple things going through my mind, having spent some time working with Emily and Bridget.
Bingo.
At my range in March, but it's when there's a couple points here, Jeff, and I think the second point we'll get into here a little bit is people, and this is what I teach, and I've written a ton about it, and I talk about this until I'm blue in the face, is you can't have your first string be that 143. Well, or you can, and maybe you get a miss and all that kind of stuff, but Emily just displayed exactly what I teach on the range is get up there, get your, and I call it 85%, whether it's 82.5 or 92.5, get your 1-for-1 really comfortable string, and then take that targeted edge dial and just dial it up and dial it up. And then on that last one, you got 4 good strings. You have a decision to make. You can either get like what she did in that 150 range on string number 4 and say, hey, let me get one more of those and I'll drop my overall time by 0.2 seconds, or I'm just going to rip one and see how fast I can really go. And I think if you were to call up Emily and ask her about the 143 or whatever the last one she shot, she was probably right at the edge of her capability or probably even lost. If you're going to ask Emily what she saw on that last string, she'd probably sit here and tell you that she was past her edge, or what I call 100% edge, where her breaking down, where she probably didn't see the dot on every single play that she pulled.
Yep.
And because she's a smart shooter in that position to shoot that string extremely, extremely well. And I'll get into the second point, but I want you to get into the second point before I dive into it and talk about where the time difference is between the set of strings that were shot between her as well as somebody else.
Sure. So, the biggest thing I took away from this was exactly, again, I'm like, okay, this is the Steve Foster school of how to shoot steel challenge. Come out, get a good run in, and then keep dialing it up. If you happen, she didn't, but if you happen to have that, take an extra shot on the third or fourth string, then you got to dial it back and just, get that good score in. That was the first thing. Now I've got the data in front of me. The thing that I can see here, and this is the new thing I'm preaching outside of my, grip the gun and go 1-for-1, is you've got to move fast. Her splits her draws were all within literally 0.04, which is nominal. It's irrelevant. It's a number that doesn't matter. The difference being is that they were all right there in that half-second range.
Right.
And you can't get a good string down if you miss your first plate. So, looking at this, my guess is she said, okay, I've got to make sure I'm always getting the first plate.
Absolutely.
I can't just drive hard and hope for the best.
And that's a Fosterism 101.
Yep.
Do you know how many first plate shots I've probably missed in the last 50,000 rounds I've shot?
2.
Maybe 1. I'm thinking 1, but it certainly could be 2. And when people come over and train, they're like, well, how do I work on my first shot? No, you don't understand. The first shot is never going to be, well, I say never going to be your problem. I have spent a lot of time with a lot of people, and I have not seen somebody that is just so painfully deliberate on the first shot that doesn't have the same type of issue on the other 4.
Yep.
So I'm a strong proponent of, hey, even bullseye that first one, then let's get this thing off to the races. When Chris and I shoot against each other, I think it was Alex with AMG Labs timer. AMG Labs. He said, "Man, did you realize your first shot on Smoking Up was faster than Chris Barrett's?" I'm like, "No, but it doesn't surprise me. But what's happened with Chris and certainly Grant is what we're talking about, Jeff. Is their transitions from plate to plate are just blazing fast."
Well, I always, I love oxymorons. Jumbo shrimp, military intelligence.
I won't tell anybody you said that.
I'm kidding to all my friends who serve. Thank you for your service. It's just a joke. But there's an oxymoron in this game, and that's stopping fast. And, the first thing you think about when you think about the word fast is not stopping. but that's what you have to be able to do. And I mean, these guys have actually taken it to another level where on a plate that they're passing through, okay, let's just take plate 2 in roundabout, say. More than likely they're shooting at 1-2 and then transitioning to the right-hand side of the stage. They may be shooting 3-4, they may be shooting 4-3, but that plate 2, my guess is they're not stopping on it. It's a drive-by.
In play 2 of accelerators, the epitome of that example.
Yes, good point. But those plates where you're having a direction change. So let's face it, no matter how you shoot roundabout, you're going to change direction after you shoot plate 4. You have to come back to the middle and shoot the stop plate. They've got it down so perfect where they're there and they've stopped to change direction, and as they're doing that, they're able to pull the trigger.
Right.
Because and everybody who is having trouble doing that, it's because you're not stopping. Like if you could video these guys, I guarantee if you could get it in slow motion, they're pulling that trigger at the exact moment that they're stopping. They are not moving when they're shooting that plate.
Right.
Now, like you said, plate 2 in accelerator, plate 2 in roundabout, I don't think they're stopping. I think they're slowing down considerably, but I would bet money that the gun never stops.
When I shoot accelerator or second plate on roundabout, the gun's not stopping.
Yeah. And quite frankly, I'm not as fast as you guys, but I'm the same way. It's I don't even know if I'm seeing the dot on the plate, quite frankly. I'm just taking it as it's that close, and if my technique is correct, I'm going to hit that plate.
Right.
Now, that does not go for, plate 2 in pendulum by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
But those two. So you wanted to talk about the strings that were thrown by the other shooter, and I'm not going to call them out because it's not about that. It's about using their time as a comparison.
Yeah, as a baseline. The
Right.
splits, really, right?
Right. So you're talking about a difference of about 1.5, maybe not quite, maybe 1.4 seconds between these two stage scores. And interestingly enough, this shooter's first string was also thrown out. But it was thrown out because he shot 7 shots.
Right.
Okay, actually, take that back. He shot 8 shots. And my guess is that he said, okay, now I need to settle down and just put in solid strings. And so his strings were 189, 185, 193, 182. So all of those strings were within 1/10 of a second of each other. But he couldn't follow the Steve Foster method of ramp it up a little, because he'd already thrown out his first string.
Right. Then you're behind, and that's not a good place to be shooting from.
Right. And then, digging into it and going, where did this person lose the most time? Basically he's losing somewhere between 0.2 and 0.3 seconds per string. And I'm not exactly sure how they shoot it. I'm almost positive Emily shoots this 1-2 4-3 stop. Do you know?
Yeah, I believe. Well, at one point in time, that's exactly how she shot it. And her and her dad and I don't know. Hopefully Emily's not listening, but her dad and I talked briefly about this, because most people shoot from the left box in Showdown the same pattern that they shoot roundabout from. So I did have him reach out to her. I don't know, it was probably a month or so maybe before the World Speed Shoot, to ask her why she changed, because sometimes on Showdown she was shooting one way and another way on roundabout, and even mid string she would change. So when we trained together, she was shooting it 1, 2, 4, 3 stop, and then we tried it 1, 2, 3, 4 stop because she was having a little bit of a issue on that back plate. And so let's talk about that real briefly, because a lot of people are like, well, should I ever change up plate orders and blah, blah, blah. Here's what I tell you is, and I'll be the first person to tell you, is whatever way you feel the most comfortable shooting, well, it's reasonable. So it's not like 1,
Yes.
4, 2, 3, or
Yeah,
something
you're
like
not,
that.
you're not doing.
Yeah.
I'm going to call them out because the video was hilarious a couple years ago. The Kurt Grimes ping pong way to shoot Smoke and Hope, where you're basically going 1, 4, 3, 2, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kurt.
But outside of that, however you feel most comfortable shooting it is you're going to shoot it better.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do from time to time in training is if somebody's really struggling, is I will have them change up their order. And now I'm giving away all my secrets, but the reason why I have them change up their order and then I'll actually switch them back to their other order is because they've kind of let their subconscious go to kind of handle business, and their subconscious is not burned into shooting it 1 for 1. It's kind of the gun's not where the eye expects it to be, and then you just pull the trigger because it's not on the plate. So by changing up the order from time to time, you force the conscious mind to influence your level of shooting, and then if you flip it back, it burns it into your subconscious to think briefly, ever so briefly, about how to shoot a stage in a particular order. And the last 5 people that I've had in the last 2 months that have been over that have had this issue, it's fixed the issue within a 10-minute activity.
Oh yeah.
So keep that in mind. That's a trick that usually you have to pay for to learn, but no, it certainly helps people if you get kind of messed up on one plate from here to there on a particular stage.
Steve, have you come up with a discount code for your training program? Did you have a discount code?
No, but I've talked about, based on how busy I've been, I've talked about increasing the rate.
So, again, you actually mentioned Alex and the AMG Labs timer. And the reason why I was able to really dig into this is because the timer not only records the splits, because, there's a lot of timers that record the splits, but it interacts with the Practice Score app on the pad, which interacts with, of course, the Practice Score website. And you have Practice Score Competitor. You can pull those scores down and you get the splits.
Absolutely.
You can actually go in there and look at any shooter's stage, and when you hit the bar graph of that stage, you'll get the splits. And that's how I was able to pull this up, and that's how I was able to do the comparison. Now, of course, I had to take the data and type it into Excel, no big deal. And that's why I didn't do everybody. I just picked one specific stage and division. But this is a huge point that I use and it's something that I really started taking to heed a couple of months ago. And I know you and I have talked about it. I don't know if I've shared it on the podcast, but I was shooting accelerator, practicing, and I threw a good string for me. And I threw another good string, both of them 1 for 1 runs, but they were a quarter second different. And I'm like, wait a minute, they felt the same. They were both good 1 for 1 runs. Where was my differential? Well, again, using the AMG Labs timer, pulled up the timer, looked at the strings, and realized that for me, it was a huge part of it was transitioning to plate 4 and then transitioning to plate 3.
Sure.
And if you don't know why you're fast or slow, you'll never be able to improve.
Right.
And so, again, Alex is not a sponsor of the podcast. He's just a good friend. Do yourself a favor and get one of those timers. they are invaluable. I've always got my phone with me. I've got the Practice Score app, which is free. You're able to, as a practice session, I started doing it with my kids that I train, and I do it myself, is that I always end it with a match conditions run. So put it into the timer, and you'd be amazed what a difference it makes when you finally, even when your brain says, okay, this means something. It means more than just practice. It means more than just chucking rounds down range. And if you can continue to shoot your practice times when you put yourself under a timer in practice, you're having a good practice. And you're in the moment. At least this is my theory.
Well, and to that point, whenever I practice or whenever I train, we hold ourselves accountable by using a timer and shooting it all like a stage, because the worst thing that can happen, and these people, we'll have to come up with a term for it because it happens. Maybe we just call it steel challenge math and keep it simple as that. Well, yeah, on that accelerator, I shot a 185, and if I multiply that by 4, no, you can't multiply it by 4 because that's not what you shot. You shot a 250, a 260, a 185, a 2, and a 240. It's not steel challenge math. But that's what ends up happening is and even some of the best of us have done this. And don't act like you haven't done that, listeners.
I don't know what he's talking about, people. Listen, I've never done that. I don't know what he's talking about.
Today, because you haven't shot or what? But what happens from a competitor perspective is that, I know what my personal best is, and it's 185 on an accelerator, and I shoot a 2 flat on the first string, and blah 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 blah, and it's, I'm getting discouraged because I'm not shooting a personal best. But what happens is when you shoot with the methodology that I use, that I've trained, is that your overall times will come down because you're actually looking at the sight up plate when it should be there, so on and so forth. And then you start to drop that targeted edge dial, your overall time starts going down, and then you can ramp it back up and push that barrier. So it's always about consistency, and then you turn it up from there. And I can go in, we could spend 2 hours talking about all that, but it's be careful of the steel challenge math is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, absolutely. And, again, why do I preach go 1 for 1? Because your makeups take a lot of time.
Right.
And I don't doubt that the top 200, maybe more, shooters could go out there and shoot a match and only fire 195 bullets. Their score wouldn't be competitive. Okay? If you said, okay, you're going to start on this stage, and as soon as you have a miss, you're out, everybody, and your time doesn't matter, everybody would buckle down, and they'd be able to shoot 1 for 1 runs. That's not what I talk about when I talk about 1 for 1. It's a 1 for 1 run within, your capability. If we could all shoot like Max Michel, we'd all be world champions. And, if you ask Chris last year, and Chris is a pretty humble guy, and you said, what do you think your chances are for next year? He'd probably say, I think I have a good chance. If you asked him, do you think you're going to shoot a 56? He'd probably say, no freaking way.
It depends on what time of the year.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
A year?
1 year ago. 1 year. 1 year ago.
No.
I'm not talking about 3 months before the match. I'm talking about 1 year ago. And he puts a lot of work in. You train with Chris.
Right.
How much?
I was supposed to be there this past Saturday. We were going to have but we were going to shoot a match at his place, and I had to go get sick and all that kind of jazz. It's probably the biggest thing I'm bummed about is not being able to shoot up there. So, anyway.
Well, okay, so take Chris, and there's a number of the top shooters, that either have a home range, have access to a range. My guess is they're putting minimally 1,000 rounds a week down range.
Oh yeah, I think that's a safe number because anybody that's got a range like that that's somewhat serious about this is probably shooting, let's say, a minimum 3 times a week, and it is nothing to shoot 300 rounds in a range session.
Yeah,
it's usually I'm shooting about 500, and sometimes when we get carried away and we'll shoot all day, then you're talking. I've done more than 2,000 rounds in a day range session. So yeah, all day.
Well, I know. I'm
day.
fortunate. I have access to a range. It's not a home range, but it's access. And prior to the World Speed Shoot, for about the 6 weeks prior to the World Speed Shoot, I was out there twice a week, 7 guns, doing 50 to 75 rounds a gun.
Right.
Trying to stay relevant in all the guns. And I had set specific goals for what I wanted to do at the match.
Right.
I'm not that person that says, oh, I'm going to make the top 10. That wasn't my goal. And anybody who knows me, who saw me at the match, my mantra for the match was be one of the fastest old guys. And I was fortunate. I got lucky in one division, and I shot well enough to win a couple of titles.
Sure.
Senior titles. Let's be clear. Senior.
Right.
And that's something else that I think a lot of people don't do. And I know you did it. It took you 14 months or 402 days. What was it?
Yeah, I think it was 405 days.
405 days. Steve said after the World Speed Shoot in 2019, right?
Yep, that's correct.
In 2019, he said, I'm going to break 60. And prior to that, what do you think your best match had been?
Oh, it's probably right in that 64 range.
64 range. So he's taken off, on average, a half a second the stage, which we all know doesn't sound like a lot. Well, no. To the outside person, that doesn't sound like a lot, and we all know that's an eternity in this
right.
game. But he set a goal, and he set a plan, and he worked the plan, and he was fortunate enough to reach his goal.
Yep.
And I think that's there's a lot of power in that. I've got a goal right now in my mind, but listening to some of the motivational tapes that I'm listening to, I've got my next goal after that in mind. I'm not working on it, but I've got it in mind, so I've always got something I'm reaching towards. And, if I can reach my first goal, then I'll put together my plan for reaching my second goal. And, this is not about, a motivational talk or anything like that, but it's something everybody should consider doing is, what is your goal? And I want to be fast. That's a lofty aspiration. That's not a goal. Make it hard, make it steadfast, make it what you want it to be. I want to shoot outer limits in under 10 seconds. Okay, how are you going to do that?
Exactly.
I want to shoot a match under 60. I want to shoot a match under 70. To some people, hell, I'm still chasing 70.
Yep.
And so what is it going to take to get there? Where is it you got to do? Look at the data. The data's out there. The data's on the Steel Challenge website. It's in the Practice Score competitor app. It's on Practice Score. Take advantage of that stuff. Okay, I'm off my training.
And I'll also say this, that, sometimes it's what do you want shooting to be for you? Because there's a lot of people out there that are spending a lot of time and effort and money to be the top of the sport. And if you have a 9-to-5 job and you got some kids and blah, 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 and you don't have a home range, you don't have that accessibility, is it realistic then to, to shoot a sub 60? I don't know. I mean, it takes time and effort and resources to do that. I know exactly what it takes to do that, and it's a lot, and not everybody's ready to put in that time and effort. And that's okay. But if you do just want to get better, and you don't have anybody in your area, so on and so forth, that can help you with that, give me a shout, look me up, and I have not had a single person that has stepped foot on my range that hasn't met their goals. And a lot of them is just, hey, I want to get better. I want to class up. I want this, or I'm at a hump. I had somebody at my range, a couple weeks ago that they were struggling, and they were a centerfire shooter. And you know what? They went to Mississippi and shot 4 out of 7 stages with a personal best with their production gun, and had somebody else the week before that's a grandmaster shooter and can't break in the 70s if his life depended on it. And I'm pretty confident, based on what we had to do on a couple of stages, is that his next full match that he shoots, which I think is this weekend, he's gonna break into the 70s. And that comes motivation by itself, because what happens from a mental standpoint is if you got this mental, it's really a mental block that happens. It's really not the shooting part of it. It's not the mechanical part. Is that people just put a lot of weight on their shoulders and say, hey, I want to do this. Now I'm getting frustrated because I can't get there. And what I do is I show them that it's possible. And, because everybody's got what I call a shooting tendency. I figure out what your shooting tendency is and some basic principles that we've talked about, and it's not rocket science. And, people get better, but sometimes you need to have those kind of conversations after you're at a plateau to find the resources out there to get better. And some of us are just really analytical people that, there wasn't anybody that showed me some of the things that I've talked to you about, or, Chris has learned from me, and I've learned from Chris, and shooting together. I'm like, so Chris, why the heck do you put your foot over there like that? He was, well, yeah, you don't do that. I'm like, nah, man, I never thought of that. And it's good to have people like that, but you got to be at a certain level to be able to pick up those different nuances. You got to be a good student of the game to pick them up. But if you're at that roadblock and you need help, give me a shout, and hopefully I can help you or point you in the right direction.
I'm going to paraphrase a conversation I had with Chris probably about, a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I said, Chris, why do you stand? Why do you set up the way you set up in that crouchy position? And he looked at me. He looked at me and he goes, have you seen how tall I am? He goes, I need the gun at 5 foot.
Yeah. Yep.
He goes, I get in that position because now that gun is right where it needs to be when it comes up. And except for one stage, we all know it, pendulum, I don't have to move the gun.
Yep.
So, and to your point, become a student of the game, analyze that stuff, talk to people. Listen, yes, Steve does have a home range, and if you go and train with him, it's not for free, okay? But I'll be honest with you, if you don't abuse Steve at a match, meaning, during the middle of him shooting, don't ask him what's the best way to shoot outer limits. Okay? But if after the match you pull him aside, hey, Steve, can I pick your brain for a minute? Or me, or Grant, or Chris, or any of the top shooters, I guarantee you we're going to talk to you, and we're going to answer your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Steve, there's been something that's been weighing on my conscience.
Oh boy, what'd you do this time?
And I gotta clear it up. People have been asking on the internet, are the peak times going to change?
Oh no, I've seen some people out there that said that they already know what's going to happen. Is that possible, Jeff?
Well, no. It's not. And I'll tell you why. Because
Tell me.
I'm the data nerd that takes all the data and comes up, we have an algorithm that's been developed that comes up with a recommendation to be made for the stage time changes per division. And I am sick and tired, and I'm probably going to piss Mike Foley and Zach Jones off.
Uh-oh.
But I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to change.
All right, let's hear it.
Right here, right now.
Uh-oh.
Okay?
Uh-oh. Breaking news.
Okay? Here's what's going to happen, people. There's going to be a review, and then you'll find out. I can't
okay.
stress it enough. There have been 0 decisions made as of yet. In the rule book, it states every year the times will be analyzed and adjustments will be made accordingly. Now, an adjustment of 0 is technically an adjustment. Just like an adjustment of 1 second is an adjustment. So for those listening to this podcast, share it with your friends. No decision, one way or the other, has been made other than the fact that there will be a review. Does that clear it up?
Crystal clear. So just make sure I understand.
Yeah.
So nobody knows at this point in time, including Mike Foley, what changes, if any, are going to be made.
Correct. In fact,
okay.
Even though the numbers
okay.
in front of me, the recommended numbers in front of me are just that. It's the numbers that the algorithm are recommending, but that doesn't mean that's going to be what the change is.
Right.
So your statement is 1,000% correct. Nobody knows what's going to happen.
Yep.
You can make all the suppositions, and you can surmise of what's going to happen based on what's happened in the past. And nobody knows. So I hope that clears it up. Well, this has been a good one. I think we got some good information out here for people. Breaking down. This is our final talk about the World Speed Shoot 2020. Again, great event. Amazing. Times being shot. I don't know about you. This is my third one, and it's getting to be the point where like it's old home days. It's like we all get together. You finally get to see all your friends that you only see on Facebook. For those that you don't get to shoot, at a local match, you get to see them. You get to hang out. It's a lot of fun. And I am personally pleased that it's going to be at the CMP Talladega Marksmanship Park for the next 3 years.
Yeah, me as well. I think it's a great venue, and it's there's a lot of shooting that happens in the Southeast, that's for sure.
All right, well, Steve, I'm done talking. You got any final parting comments?
I'm good, Jeff. As always, good talking with you, man, especially after my long hospital stay.
Well, listen, we're all glad you're better, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks for listening, everybody.
All right, see you, man.
Bye-bye.